All right, we're already in public session, so we're going to stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Did you repeat yours?
Okay, and to my knowledge, we have no written communication. Reports of boards and committee. Mr. Vivo, I'll let you go and report on the capital meeting that was.
The capital committee met on 3/21, and Rick Yancey, who's the district financial advisor, did a presentation on a potential capital project, and looked at size of any potential capital project, and gave us some different scenarios on how those would affect and impact the tax rates and things, and so also went over some maximum cost allowance. So it was a lot of numbers, and I think, until we get our building conditions survey, I think in the next month or two, are we going to know what it is that we're really going to be looking at going forward. So, but I guess that was really about it. So.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have one before I go? Okay, so the exit poll. As you recall, we used to do this. The last time was 2019 that we did it. So we did not do it in 2020 due to COVID. We did not do it in 21 as well. So one, do we want to do it in 2022 is the first question. And then if we do we want to keep it the same? So I know Jean and I talked about it in agenda setting. Jean's, I know, in favor of, and I am as well, of continuing it. I don't know if the rest of you are.
People want to do it, let's do it.
Yeah. And if we want to keep it the same for some consistency to see kind of.
Yes. I think it'd be a great idea to do it.
Yeah.
All right.
I think it gives some people an opportunity to, have some feedback.
Yeah, for sure. And keep it the same for consistency.
Get to see a pre-COVID, post-COVID type.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if there is any.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So, Ms. Custodi, we can plan to do that exit poll. And with that, we'll turn it over to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. We have 3 presentations tonight. It's for the first time in a while, we get to welcome Mr. Pigeon here in person to honor our students and teachers of the month. I would like to say thank you for the entertaining and informative videos that you have provided us with, but there's no substitute for the real thing. In the interest of social distancing and capacity of the room, and the fact that most of our students and teachers of the month are heavily involved in extracurricular activities. We don't have the actual students and teachers of the month in attendance, but we have Mr. Pigeon here to talk about all of the wonderful accolades that resulted in them being nominated as students and teachers of the month.
Thank you. Always great to have the opportunity to shine a spotlight on Tiger Nation and the wonderful students and staff and all of their great efforts.
Mr. Pigeon, if you need assistance, that is the touch board, the
that's right.
wireless
I have not
keyboard and
practiced
mouse
with this.
aren't working,
Yes.
so Mr. Lonzak's pretty good with.
Oh, you're a pro, man. What you were saying. So first is Colette Christopher. Colette was nominated by Miss Raitzer. Spoke very highly of her in the music program and her being very active in a lot of the competitive music programs, area all states, etc. Spoke very highly of her leadership in the music program, but also shared that she knows her very well in different realms, including that she's a three-season track athlete,
and really wanted to share how kind and caring and dedicated student she is. So congratulations, Colette. Ryan Manzella was also nominated by Miss Evans and really featured the fact that he just is one of those nice kids. Very polite in class, very good student, pleasant, friendly to all of his classmates and his teachers. And wanted to share that we had a new student come from a different country, and she knew Ryan to be so affable that she paired him up with this new student, and Ryan really did a great job of befriending him, talking to him daily, and really making him feel welcoming in Amherst, and she really wanted to honor Ryan for that. So congratulations, Ryan. Mr. Maxick over here. A well-known face in Amherst, a young lady, a young man, Zach Vittel, had shared that Mr. Maxick just always takes the time to listen and talk and speak with him during class, after class. Spoke very eloquently about how much of their conversations are academic, about his writing, and he has a strong interest in writing, but also just not only talking, but doing a lot of listening as well. So he was appreciative for that. He described him as a mentor, a master, and a friend. So congratulations to Mr. Maxon. Maria Bennett, bottom right. Very well-liked young lady in our building. She is one of our building monitors, and she's well-liked in a tough role because the majority of her assignment is supervision of students and accountability of students. But she really provides a great balance in there, and she does it with very much caring. She does it with a lot of volume. She's very enthusiastic, and she's fun. She is responsible for our daily joke or riddle, so every time you walk in the building, there's a new joke there for greeting the kids and the staff, and she really does a great job of being a kind of sister or aunt to our students. So she does a great job, and we certainly wanted to recognize her for that. So congratulations, Maria. She also sings happy birthday to the students in the cafeteria. Again, very loudly. So always making the students feel welcome and taking a special interest in all the individual students. I wanted to begin to feature, because we're getting a lot of feedback. We've always had students of the month from our Harkness, Kenton, and Potter Road programs, and they're doing a nice job of getting me the pictures and the information, so I want to include them in all of our presentations. We had quite a run in January. So I want to congratulate Lihat Waldu, Criminal Justice Program, Naomi Marty, Health Careers, Emily Ginther, Health Careers, Fatima Muhammad, Health Careers, Emily Watson, Digital Media, Tyler Sheehan, Criminal Justice, Abby Abramowitz, Fashion Design, Azaria Habib, Criminal Justice, and Gianna Cicero in Health Careers. And that's across the 3 different buildings. So we really swept it in January at the Erie Winbosey's Career and Tech programs. February, I'm going to go one more and then I'll go back. So our February students of the month in the building, first off was Aaron Darden. Aaron was nominated by Mr. Zobel, and he shared that Aaron is in his honors physics section and really shows a lot of caring for his fellow students. He described him as very genuine, greeting his fellow students, sincere in all of his conversations with his peers. He described him as an A gamer, putting things in class often in different perspectives and different terms for his classmates and in a very digestible way as they go through the instruction. And Mr. Zobel had noted just the interesting conversations he has with Aaron and what a mature perspective he has. So Mr. Zobel described him as an A+ student, but an A++ person. So congratulations to Aaron. Olivia Griffo was nominated by Mitch Newport, who is one of our daily long-term subs as well as one of our track coaches. And he's also a chemistry teacher, so he does a lot of chemistry sprinkling during the cafeteria, during free periods in terms of studying with students in chemistry, and him and Mr. Manzel kind of tag team those efforts in the cafeteria. He was really impressed with not only her track ability and how she treats her track mates, but also her interest in in chemistry and also tackling some of the different takes in chemistry. For example, he gave an example of there's two different ways to create Lewis structures with chemical equations. And there was the Newport system and the Mansell system. She decided she needed to master both of those. So she's mastered through her studying and tutoring both of the systems. She's very, very interested in chemistry. He also shared that she's just respectful, one of those very, very prideful tigers, and he was really wanted to take the time to honor her. So congratulations, Olivia. Miss Rager, right in the middle there, Miss Rager is one of our teacher assistants. Again, one of those moms in the building. Very, very caring to the students, warm all the time. Really takes an interest in caring for the kids that she's directly involved in, as well as all of the kids in the building. Throughout the pandemic, she was one of those whatever I can do for you type of person. Whatever I would ask her, she'd always come looking for extra things. She just wanted to help the kids through this time. So very caring, warm individual, and it's really wonderful to have those type of people in the building for our kids. So congratulations to Miss Rager. Mr. Hibbard might be someone you may not know well yet. He's in his second year here. He shares time at the middle school and the high school as a ceramics teacher. Ms. Boyer nominated him, our Latin teacher. She's worked with him very closely on a few different projects, and she shared just how she picked up on the kids' interest in him is them talking in her class about, oh, we're doing this in Mr. Hibbard's class, and we're doing this in Mr. Hibbard's class. So a lot of talk about ceramics and what a wonderful teacher Mr. Hibbard is. When they finally got a chance to meet each other, they found a kindred interest in Dungeons and Dragons, which is making a significant comeback. At Amherst, we have a huge Dungeons and Dragons club. So they've worked together, and Mr. Hibbard comes back from the middle school a couple days a week to work with the Dungeons and Dragons team. And he's got a long, long history with the game and is very knowledgeable. So he takes that extra effort in the kids, and he does wonderful work in the ceramics program. So congratulations to Mr. Hibbard. And we're going to go back one here to our CTE. You might recognize the gentleman to the right. Ryan Manzella was nominated in the CTE program as well. So congratulations to Jaleel Williams in the Electrical 2 program, Rachel Wersinger, Early Childhood, Mariah Applegate, Dental Lab, Delilah Dietrich, Welding, Ryan Manzella, Sports Science. They were all chosen in the Area 1 CTE program. So congratulations to our January and February students and teachers of the month.
While you're on a roll, Mr. Pigeon, I think we can invite Mr. Lonzak and Mrs. Christofiak to the stage here to present the high school building update for this school year. Welcome back, and welcome to the two of you to accompany Mr. Pigeon.
Yes, good to be here.
Great to be here.
Yeah.
Ms. Heather Christofiak joining us as well, our Dean of Students. So it was really an exciting year for us. We had kind of adopted the theme early in the summer that we're going to be back in orange and black in 2021. So it's been really kind of a fun mantra that can reopen fully this year in September. So we have a number of things we want to spotlight. You know, we've come full circle, and part of what we are concentrating on in the building and returning to is our strategic plan. You are very familiar with these columns of learning and achievement, student life, and Amherst pride. You'll see in our presentation all three of those highlighted, as well as kind of the meshing of student life and Amherst pride. Those things come together very nicely at the high school. You know, we've been on a journey, and we knew that coming through this, we were looking forward in terms of how are we going to meet the needs of the moment, and how are we going to meet the needs of what we could predict is going to be, I call it, maybe not the best term here, the hangover of the pandemic, and what are going to be some of those effects that students are going to be dealing with long beyond the pandemic. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Lonzak to share a little bit more about that.
Yes, well, we certainly don't want to belabor the point that the pandemic has played in learning loss and setbacks, so to speak, for students across this country. We did want to acknowledge that has played quite a role in our shaping of what we want to do to better our Amherst students. So while we're committed to moving forward with our strategic plan and those pillars on the previous slide, we did have to kind of take a detour and really strategically plan where we needed to go. That started with a very robust summer program, something that has never really been done before, largely in part thanks to federal stimulus dollars and the support of you. That allowed for over 200, close to 250 credits to be recovered to help with small class sizes, also implementing a social emotional learning component for students who struggled with remote learning and hybrid learning to make sure that they were welcomed back into the building prior to the start of this school year. Again, it was a very successful program. We had numerous teachers step up that normally have not taught summer school in the past, bring home and welcome back students before this school year even began. Along with that, Ms. Christofiak will talk a little bit about this later, but throughout the year we've had a strong commitment to relationship building and active student participation and engagement, both in the classroom and in those other things that make high school special, so more to come on that. And one thing on the academics that we wanted to highlight is that for the most part, other than current seniors at Amherst High School, every other student has not sat for a traditional kind of high stakes exam. This chart illustrates really, and maybe you've seen a chart like this similarly, aside from current students in year 12 or senior year, no other student has had a traditional high school year because of the pandemic. With that comes Regents exams and them never sitting for Regents exams. So in an effort to kind of combat that and give students an authentic test-taking experience, and we certainly don't like to emphasize test-taking all the time, but we felt it was an important experience to have students go through, we really doubled down on a January midterm week where we had all 9th, 10th, and 11th grade students sit for at least one traditional formal midterm. That came mostly in the social studies department where they were pulled out of class. They kind of checked in their cell phones, they sat in the gym, they went through those traditional instructions to simulate an authentic Regents exam, like I said, experience, so they will be prepared a little bit more in June for something they haven't done yet. With that comes a little bit of healthy stress, and you could kind of see the level of concern be raised for students academically. And again, that's a good thing sometimes, to help them prepare those study skills, raise that level of concern, and as I said. So we're preparing for June and have been doing that all year on the academic side, along with the social and emotional and learning sides that you'll see a little bit later. Continuing along with Priority 1, another district-wide initiative that Dr. Shanahan, Dr. Otto on the special ed side of things has emphasized across the district is fostering and maintaining strong co-teacher partnerships. I'd like to talk a little bit here about how we're doing that at the high school. That began in the summer with putting together co-teaching partners for a pretty rigorous and robust summer professional development plan. Just to take a step back, co-teaching is really defined as a classroom setting where two certified teachers, one primarily with a general ed or a content area certification and another primarily in special ed with a special ed certification or sometimes an ENL certification, are working together. They're co-planning, they're taking mutual responsibility for the positive academic outcomes of all students in the classroom. They're modeling inclusivity, which is something that we value very strongly here at Amherst Central High School. And with that in mind, we wanted to relaunch that partnership for all of our co-teaching partnerships this year. So again, that started in the summer with some strong summer professional development. We've continued that throughout the year with a professional learning community that's mostly studied a book by Dr. Marilyn Friend. It's called Co-Teach. And what we're essentially doing is we're reading a chapter or two every month. We're coming together to discuss best practices in co-teaching. What's working in your classroom, what's not working in your classroom, where can partnerships grow and thrive. Oftentimes, and we'll highlight this on the next slide with the video, these co-teaching partnerships refer to their colleagues as work spouses. So these, in a way, are kind of going through a marriage therapy, if you would, to improve their partnerships and be the best that they can be. Along with that, on the administrative side of things, we're emphasizing common planning time and going through common planning modeling to make sure that co-teaching partnerships can come together and model and plan and lesson plan and unit plan and grade and assess collaboratively and efficiently. It's been going very, very well this year. We regularly check in with these partnerships, and as I've said, it's been an emphasis this year. So I've talked enough about this. We'd like to introduce to you all the way to the right a newly hired math teacher this year, Ali Fabiano. Kristen Piper in the middle, special ed teacher who co-teaches in different sections with Ali on the right and then with Jennifer Koppel-Keenan on the left. This is one example of some new co-teaching partnerships in our math department. So we'll play this video right now. It's about 4 minutes.
Hi, I'm Ellie Fabiana.
I'm Kristen Piper.
And I am Jennifer Couple-Keenan. And we are the unique partnership of co-teaching in the math department, where we have 2 math teachers and 1 special ed teacher. And together we collaborate and co-teach 3 periods of math. Being able to be in the classroom with a special ed teacher, not only are we able to bring many minds into the math, but we're also able to bring in more ideas where the special ed teacher has much more background in the needs of those students with IEPs and 504 plans. And they are able to really help drive instruction to really benefit those students, and also help me be able to understand how I can reach out to those students in a more beneficial way.
So we do use a variety of co-teaching models each week in the classroom. We team teach a lot, and that allows the kids to get different instruction from different instructors throughout one period of class. We'll flip-flop a lot. We'll do one problem here, then we'll go walk around the room, we'll take another problem, and sometimes kids feel more comfortable asking a certain person questions, or they don't feel comfortable saying something in front of the whole class, so they can personally talk to us while one of us is still teaching and keeping instruction going. We also take advantage of station teaching. We do a lot of that in review. We'll break up the kids into a couple groups, maybe 2 or 3 groups. Usually it's 3, so that we can have one of us at each group that is a little bit more challenging. And then there is some kind of independent activity where the kids don't necessarily need us. So we can touch base with that group, but the other 2 are where we're mainly going to be. And we can give the kids more one-on-one attention that way to also assess how they are learning, where their difficulties are, and hopefully fix that in the next coming days. And to also just get to know our students better so that we can instruct them better every day.
Within this model, it takes a lot of planning, a lot of time. So the 3 of us, we meet every other day to go over what we're going to teach, how we're going to teach it, and then what's going to make it meaningful to the students. How are we going to get them fully engaged in the actual math going on? So with that planning, it's really nice because the 3 of us have a wide variety of experiences. So just that alone is a huge benefit to our students. We can come with all these different strategies to tackle maybe a very difficult concept in math and just make it as easy as possible for the students and help them see why it's important and where they can see it in real life. So that takes a lot of planning, but with the planning, it's very beneficial for our students because we have 3 minds coming out of 1.
For my 14 years of teaching, co-teaching this year for my very first time, I have seen so many benefits for our students. First and foremost, having the collaboration of 2 teachers in the room using multiple different strategies. Students are much more comfortable than they've ever been before, just asking for help, reaching out, asking a question, coming to us and saying, hey, I don't understand this. They're much more comfortable just coming to us and asking for help, which has been an amazing thing to see in a classroom full of special ed, at-risk, or just students in general that maybe not necessarily really enjoy math, to actually see them smiling and asking for help and finding success in the classroom. Another benefit has been being able to spend more time with each student, being able to reach out for their social needs, their emotional needs, as well as their mathematical learning. We've been able to really incorporate that SEL model into our classrooms due to the fact that we do have this co-teaching model, and there's 2 of us to be able to reach out to each of these kids.
The one thing I'll say, and they're very humble, they say students don't like math. That may have been the case coming into the year, but I can tell you by walking by and seeing these classrooms, it's anything but that. These are vibrant, active, engaging classes with a lot of success. So we just wanted to share with you and hear it straight from our co-teachers how well it's going. And again, this is just one partnership of many in the Amherst Central High School. We've got to figure out how to get out of this. Oh. wants to play it again? Not there. There we go. All right. It really wants to play it again. There we go. Moving right along, one other initiative that we're proud to be piloting this year is called the New York State Seal of Civic Readiness. We have been lucky enough to apply for and be accepted to be a pilot school for this new state initiative that will kind of go live next school year. But like I said, we're one of a few dozen schools in the state that is fostering this new mindset, or not mindset, but this new emphasis here to help our students be active members in their communities at the local level, at the state level, and at the national level, both in school, and then giving them the tools and the mindset to make a difference beyond high school. So again, just wanted to emphasize here the State Seal of Civic Readiness. It's defined as the ability to make a positive difference in the public life of our communities through the combination of civic knowledge, skills, actions, mindsets, and experiences. I would be remiss if I didn't highlight Miss Ann Ward, Mr. Matt Murray, and Mr. Mark Jones, who are really taking the lead on this initiative. This went way back into the summer. They are attending monthly consortium meetings with some other pilot schools to put this new statewide initiative in place. How we are doing that for the first time here at Amherst Central High School is working with seniors to help them accumulate points towards the seal, which will actually be endorsed on their Regents diploma when they graduate in January. And those points come through a combination of civic knowledge and civic participation categories. Students who have taken advanced social studies coursework throughout their time in high school, honors courses, AP courses, are earning additional points once they reflect on their learning in those courses. Along with that comes community service or service learning projects. We have numerous Tigers that are giving back to our community in many, many ways, whether that's through volunteering at the Tigers Den Food Pantry, being active members in the political process, working with law firms, working in many jobs that have a civic component to it. Students, once they reflect on those mindsets and on those experiences through service learning, they're earning and accumulating points towards the Seal of Civic Readiness. The same goes for extracurricular activities and involvements. We have numerous clubs. We have Model UN, Challenge to Change, Mock Trial, and Environmental Awareness Club, the Red Cross Club. Many of these other clubs have naturally a civic component to it, and it's highlighting all of these great efforts that our students are doing, and then we're asking them to take what they've learned and ask how they can apply that in life beyond high school. Ultimately, all of this is going to culminate in what we're calling our first ever Civics Fair, and that's going to be debuting in early June. We haven't finalized the date yet, but we're certainly going to be inviting you all, so be on the lookout for that. Think science fair, but with a civics flavor, where students are going to be presenting their civics action projects. They're going to be talking about how they're civically ready to make a difference in life beyond high school. So more to come on this. We certainly are proud of this initiative. We're estimating close to 40 to 50 students will be earning this seal in our first year, so we're very, very proud of that. One thing in particular that Ann Ward has done in her government classes, she has realigned the curriculum, and she's actually allowed students to kind of dive into some civics topics that they're very passionate about. Here are just a few examples where students have taken a look at a problem or a civics issue. They've generally worked with a partner or sometimes on their own to explore a question, to go through the political process to see how this can actively be solved and propose some solutions to that. So they all put together presentations. They often recorded them and they use Screencastify. They're using their one-to-one Chromebook devices to do this very nicely. And again, they will be sharing some of these final presentations in June, so be on the lookout for that. And again, a large thanks goes out to Ann Ward for her spearheading of this project. And then just one final update on another seal that we have presented to you about in the past, the Seal of Biliteracy. We've had some knockout students that have come and talked to you about the Seal of Biliteracy. We're greatly expanding that effort again this year. Last year we had roughly 5 or 6 students earn the Seal of Biliteracy. This year that number is going to balloon to over 40. Those presentations are starting next week once we return from spring break. Huge thanks goes out to Faith Gonzalez and the entire World Language Department, along with Sue Lash and our E&L department, for really running with this biliteracy and bilingual commitment that we have here at Amherst High School. We're very proud of the diversity here, and we're proud of our World Language Department, and we have many student presentations coming up after spring break. So just wanted to highlight that and all of the great things that are happening on the curriculum side at Amherst. I will turn it over to Heather now, because I've talked quite a bit.
All right. Well, thank you, Scott. So with the pandemic, we did notice that there were some pieces to the puzzle that some of the kids were missing. And one of them was about discussion and how to have discussions and how to talk about things in an academic language. So one of the projects I started working on with Dr. Shanahan as well as Kate Rapp is bringing some discussion strategies in ELA. So the book that they chose to work on, we're working with a 9th grade honors class, is Pride and Prejudice. And if you've ever read it, you know it's a very difficult book to really understand the messaging in there. So like it says, you know, discussion provides the opportunity for them to really digest the material, process that information, and have those kinds of conversations to really understand what things are about. Now, the goal of this project is to bring the discussion strategies into the classroom to help the kids really open up and start having conversations with each other. Being behind the mask, I think kids lost that sense of how to talk to one another. As I see in my role as Dean of Students, you know, teaching them how to have conversation has been one of my #1 priorities there too. So bringing this here is that the goal is that these discussion strategies, you can see that they would be great and they work out. Maybe they're creating some successful, you know, discussions or answers, you know, in their regents' questions, things like that, and then it would spread to the masses. So the things I'm presenting with Kate Rapp and her class are things that can be used across all subject areas. So it's kind of like, let's see how this works out with this group and let's expand this. So when we think about discussion strategies, you know, we think about the purposes here. So we want kids to learn that they can help each other as well as learn from each other. We create that risk-taking environment where kids can feel safe to have a disagreement or to, you know, agree with certain people and disagree with others. It provides a very structured piece to it so that we can provide the opportunity for them to focus on things like time management, equal participation, having individual accountability. What we were finding is, you know, you still, in any year, it's not just after, you know, a pandemic year, but any year where you'll have a group of kids working on something and you have that one who, oh, they're not really doing much, they're just there, and everyone else is carrying them along. Well, with these types of strategies, I'm using some collaborative structures found by, you know, various research points, is it requires everyone to have a role. And if everyone has a role and that role is constantly changing, people have to be on point and they need to be following what's happening in front of them. So everyone participates, everyone's accountable, everyone's doing a part, all to come to one group goal. And whether that is to have a conversation to understand a letter in Pride and Prejudice, or to understand, or to create ideas or list ideas, create outlines, things for writing, that's one way to do it. The other ways, you know, that we'd like to see this go is obviously in math, you know, and teaching kids how to coach each other even. Be able to help someone without giving them the answer, giving them these skills, because these skills are not things that they can only use in high school, but these are things that they can use later in life as well. And back to you guys.
Thank you. And transitioning over to student life, you know, we really take a lot of pride and a lot of direct initiative in building that student life and culture in the building. Much of it is drawn through classroom activities, extracurriculars, but very, very much student-driven. We've reported to you before a little bit about the Student-Driven Mental Health Awareness Committee that continued on this year and really did a fantastic job, once again, of creating resources for their peers, also creating actual forums, actual events where kids would attend either digitally, virtually, or in person. They kind of culminated in their donation to crisis services at the end of the year. The Spectrum News came in and did some coverage on the activities that they had done this year, their coffee talks, their different resources that they shared with their students. But one of the things that was most exciting about this initiative, and it'll live on long after this next phase that we are in, the pandemic, we really are eager to kind of tap into that. This was totally student run. There was very little adult hands in this, and I think that's what it made it more tangible for the students. It was real. It was real for teenagers. So it was great work that they did, and we were glad that they were featured. I'll turn it back over to Heather for a little bit of a tasty update of fun things that were going on in the building.
So some things that happen in my role when I'm wandering through the cafeteria watching the kids at lunch is they give a lot of ideas that they want to see done. When it came to December, students were really wanting something fun and something a little hands-on. You know, we were still behind the masks, still with the, you know, kind of trying to keep more of a distance, and the kids really wanted something to do that was, you know, I guess holiday or winter, you know, based. So what I did is I partnered with Mrs. Backowitz in her special ed classroom, and also John Fliss and his delicious cutout cookies that he made for these kiddos. And we had a group sign up that wanted to take part. So they made snowmen with marshmallows and pretzels and little eyeballs, and then we did cookie decorating, and then they had cards also that they could write out to their friends or their family. And then of course there was hot chocolate. And what we noticed is just the intermingling of students that maybe didn't have really anywhere to rush to on the way out of school. They tended to linger. So we brought them in, everyone was welcome. And I actually had a couple students who helped put this on. They were the creators of designing posters, coming up with the ideas, making the list for me to go shopping with. So we had a lot of student participation here and just wanted to provide an opportunity to do something fun. We had about 40 kids show up for this, and that I thought was just a great success.
And the goal was to continue to bring the life back in the vibrance, in the color back to the building in terms of fun and meaningful events where kids and people could gather. Our tradition of a very strong and meaningful Black History Month continued this year with a little bit of a unique twist, a little bit of leveraging of two clubs. Challenge to Change had always taken on this initiative for many years, but they partnered with Student Council this year, and they put on just a fantastic program all month long. There was a number of different events. Some of the highlights were two homeroom activities where we had poet Jada Woodall come in and presented to the homerooms a very inspirational message that was targeted toward Black History Month. And then it culminated in an event where two spoken word artists came in, Brandon Williamson and Janelle Kerr. They did kind of a hybrid event. They had a live audience down in the cafeteria, but it was also live streamed to the homerooms for spacing purposes. But just a lot of meaningful community connections, and there was probably 6 or 7 other events during that month that were really, really a great effort by both the Student Council and Challenge to Change this year. Transitioning on to Amherst Pride, just some facts and figures. You know, one of the things that we're very prideful of is our Tigers, our students, our faculty. So we have that intrinsic pride, but we want to share it externally. And you know we're big on social media, and I just wanted to share with you the type of reach that we have. This particular month that I captured, we're getting out there with tons of messages to almost 30,000 people a month, all of our good news. Just for an example, when we sent the kids to the state championship, that particular post on Facebook within 24 hours had almost 6,000 hits in terms of people getting that message. So we have that internal pride, that's part of being a Tiger, but we're sharing it far and wide in Western New York, and we're proud to feature that and using very up-to-date tools. Also within the Google Suite, we're using more and more the Google Sites, which is their website tool. And this is one of those necessity is the mother of invention type of things, where we needed to have a more accessible curriculum guide so folks could get to it during the pandemic. So we went to the web and created a website last year for our curriculum guide, which is quite voluminous. But we have all of our extracurricular, or I should say elective courses in there. This particular website also features all of our faculty in an open house format. So parents, students can see all of our teachers, see videos from them, look at a lot of information about all of our courses, and a lot of that coincides with when we're at the scheduling season, which starts typically in January, where parents and families can get a lot of very vibrant information about making academic choices for themselves. And, we get a lot of page views on there. That particular page was hitting at a rate of about 500 a month, people that visited that site. This kind of rather busy slide is done purposefully, because it's just an example of the kind of fireworks that go off at Amherst High School constantly. We always have things going on. Yesterday was a yoga event with an outside yogi. Today was Olympians in our building. Olympic speed skaters were in our building that just competed a couple months ago in the Olympics. Some of those columns within our Amherst Pride is our pride in our relationships with our alumni. So you see the top 3 slides. I recognize one of these gentlemen, the 3rd slide over here. But Ara Bagsadarian has published a book, Lemonade Stand, that's very popular nationally, and he's one of our alumni. He annually comes in and talks to our entrepreneurship classes. Bryce Shinsius, finance extraordinaire on the East Coast, is a big friend of Amherst. He works with our Pathfinders, our Trailblazers, and he comes in several times a year, always at the Operetta, all 3 performances. But he comes into our classes and shares his experience in the world of investments. Mr. Oppenheimer and Mr. McLaughlin visiting the lacrosse team, sharing their stories of their years in the lacrosse program and keeping that connection together. And just sharing with you as well, throughout the pandemic, we were armed with a lot of careful yeses with doing things. Instead of a blunt no, we really thought about what we can do and what we can continue to do. So, for example, our kids were competing in the Model UM this fall. And you see the bottom left, that's not the operetta, that's our drama program now. Our drama program is blossoming, and they've put on great productions the past couple of years. And every Wednesday, the little puppies come in, and our pet therapy program is there, and it brings a lot of life and fun to the building, and it's intentional in terms of our mental health supports for the students. Last fall, our students traveled to Rochester, and they collaborate with the Rock the Change movement in concert with our Challenge to Change movement. We've been attending that for years, and we continue to attend that. And we talk about Bruno at Amherst. So our Spanish club, went to the premiere of Encanto, and they were engaged in getting out of the school, evening events, and real staying engaged and staying united together. So that's just an example of just kind of the student life and the pride coming together in Amherst. So like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and we're happy to present and very pleased in your support of us and shining a spotlight on our kids and our faculty. Any questions?
I have a question. So, in the math program that you saw, co-teachers, is that only specific classrooms?
Yeah, most co-teaching classrooms, we identify certain sections, and students with specific IEP needs would be placed in co-taught sections according to their IEP, and then other students that may not have identified modifications in their IEP or might not be special ed at all. So we have, how many sections?
Math is a new partnership in the co-teaching realm. That was part of our district-wide initiative to expand that repertoire. It's been well versed in social studies and in ELA and in math, science section. So that is new in math and algebra specifically this year, along with pre-algebra. So it's a bit of a new partnership in the math realm.
I think we have about 6 sections of co-taught math at this point.
How are we helping the kids that are struggling in just the regular math classes?
We have tutoring for math students, so there's extra help available in the office hours as well. And I think how we help students is good instruction, head to toe, whether it's honors, regents level. I think our teachers are very skilled at that in terms of meeting the needs of the students where they're at in their abilities and aptitudes. But there's always opportunities for extra help. Math specifically has a pretty rigorous in-day tutoring schedule.
One of the things I'd like to point out, certainly a lot of wonderful things going on in the high school this year, and we know the last 2 years have been extremely challenging for all of us. And you may have seen recently, last year's graduation rates were published, and I was proud to see that all of the hard work that went on in the high school actually came to fruition in the fact that we had, I think, the second highest graduation rate in the region, at 99% of our kids graduating last June of 2021. And there was one other school that may have had 100% graduation rate. But I think it just underscores the hard work that's been going on in the building under your leadership and former assistant principal Nan Abels. You quickly identified last year that students may or may not have been engaging, and those kids that weren't engaging in the hybrid model, you reached out to them. You advocated for busing to be added so we could bring those kids into school more often. You advocated to bring them in on Wednesdays when traditionally that was an asynchronous day. And, I remember you telling me last January that you were concerned about the number of kids that weren't engaging and falling behind. And I think my challenge to you was, do something about it now. Don't come to me in June and say we need more money for summer school. Let's work on, proactive solutions in January. And you did, and it paid off, and our students benefited from it. So that's noteworthy in regards to what's going on at the high school, and certainly underscores all the wonderful things going on this year. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more presentation in the superintendent's report. Mrs. Bazinski is going to provide us with an update on our federal stimulus funding plan. As you know, we presented you with a balanced budget on March 15th, and the legislators and governor are still working out the final details of their budget. Barring any unforeseen changes to school funding, which I'm hearing is not at issue right now in budget negotiations in Albany, we plan to present or have the budget that we presented March 15th on the agenda for your approval April 19th after spring break. Mrs. Bazinski and I will, of course, closely monitor the budget development from the state, but we thought this would be a good opportunity to update you on our federal stimulus funding.
Thank you. One of the requirements of our federal stimulus funding is that we continue to have meetings where we're engaging our stakeholders and our community, as well as all of our staff on how we're spending the money, tracking what we did spend it on, what the plans are moving forward. So we're going to use this presentation as a way to do that, similar to our budget development, how it starts and it grows and it grows and it grows, so that by the end of budget development we have one complete document. We'll use this document in a similar fashion, only it will span multiple years. So it will capture all of our spending for all of our grants. We did use this last June, although it was much smaller at the time. We only had 2 stimulus grants up here. So we'll continue to use this. We'll talk about what we spent already, plans for this year, and then what our projected plans are for the next couple of years. So this first slide just outlines the different stimulus funding sources. The first one is the CARES Act. That was the initial allocation that came during the initial part of the pandemic when school was closed. While it was federal funds, we received an equal cut from state aid of the exact amount, so it wasn't a new pot of money, but it just came from a different source. That application has been submitted and approved. And then the next 2, the CRISA, the Coronavirus Response and Relief, as well as the ARPA, American Rescue Plan, were what we presented to you in June on what our spending plan would be. And then 2 more that have come out this year are the IDEA ARP grant, which is a supplement of number 3, the ARPA grant, but it's specific to special education needs, and the Homeless Children and Youth grant, which is much smaller, but again, an offshoot of the ARPA grant, but very specific in what we're allowed to use those funds for. So these 2 we have not submitted the applications yet. We're working on rolling in the ideas of what we're going to spend those on in conjunction with the grants that we already have applications for, as well as our budget, making sure that we're not setting ourselves up to have items or staffing that we can't sustain in the long term. So the first one we'll talk about is the CARES Act. So this is the one that was a reduction in state aid, came out right away in 2021. There wasn't an increase in spending, but we needed to treat it as if there was. So at that time, our priorities were to resume in-person learning safely and to support the hybrid learning. So that is what we spent our money on: contract cleaners, professional development, technology, health and safety. It was all about getting kids back, and if they weren't back in hybrid mode, how we were going to educate them, whether they were here full-time or 3 days a week, 2 days a week, 4 days a week, whatever it was. And as we just talked about, it changed throughout the year based on the needs of the kids. But this is what that initial allocation was spent on. The next slide talks about priorities. So these priorities were specific to the two big pots of money, ARPA and CRISA, which kind of came out together. The CARES Act was released first, and then when the big stimulus monies came out, we had the additional requirements for planning, how we're going to be transparent to the public, how we're going to engage our stakeholders. So at that time, we established our priorities on what we were going to spend the money on. This is what we shared with you initially last June. Our priorities were to address lost instructional time and close those gaps. Make sure we were monitoring student, staff, and family wellness, not only physical but emotional and mental health as well. Overall health and safety, air filtration, PPE, and then to continue receiving feedback from all of our stakeholders. So our buildings have meetings, our teaching and learning committee meet, we have safety committees district-wide, building-wide. We post it on the website, we ask for feedback if anyone has any ideas for other things that we should be spending the money on. And then we take all of that together, all of those needs, and try to synthesize it to make sure that not only are we addressing those needs, but that we are being responsible into the future so that our efforts are sustainable. So in 2021-22, these are the items that we had an approved application for and that we are either spending the money on or have spent the money on. So this past summer, we had our first robust summer programming, grades K to 12. So we had full buildings in all 4 buildings. We hired teachers in AIS, ELA, reading, and math in each of the buildings. We focused on the integrated co-teaching model that we just learned about specifically to math, but we had them, our co-teachers were added in every building. In special education, we also had money budgeted for compensatory services for students who may have aged out. So our special ed students are eligible for services through their age of 21, through the school year in which they turn 21. But because of COVID, they may have lost a year of instruction, they may have lost a year of their services. So we had the ability to have them continue on into another school year. Class size reduction, again, trying to make sure that not only are we meeting the needs of our kids, but that we're keeping our kids 6 feet apart at the time, which was then 3 feet, but that all changed a lot. We added 6th assignments to 4 6th assignments in the high school. Again, it was to lower class sizes and be able to add sections so that we didn't have as many kids in one single classroom, not only for education purposes, but for spacing purposes. We added slots for alternative programming at Erie One BOCES. So Twilight and Edge are 2 alternative programs that we already buy slots there, and that's where some of our students attend that are not finding success in our traditional settings in the high school. So this is an opportunity to just increase that availability, as we were finding that there were more kids that had higher levels of needs than in a typical school year. We added an EML teacher at Windermere, and we had increased in professional development. Again, we just heard about some of that from the high school, but that professional development was across all of our buildings and was spearheaded by Dr. Shanahan. And then, of course, we increased our technology across all of our buildings for all of our students, went one-to-one for every student. All of our teachers got new laptops, webcams, doc cams, hotspots, internet, you name it, we were buying it, and we were supporting instruction for the kids, making sure that no matter where they were or what classes they were taking, they had access to their teachers, or teachers had access to our kids, so that whether they were here in person, whether they were at home, they were still getting the instruction that they needed. So at one point, you see some of these positions have an asterisk at the end of it. That's an indication that that position is going to remain into the following fiscal year, but is going to be rolled into general fund. So on the next slide, when we look at 22-23, those positions won't show there in those quantities. It's not because we eliminated it, it's because we rolled it into general fund. And again, that was a strategic plan to make sure that our additions were sustainable and that we were being responsible with our general fund budget. So lost instructional time and academic gaps, these are the expenditures and the efforts that we put forward in the current year. And then these are what our plans are for the next 2 years. So in 22-23, we're going to continue the summer programming K-12. We're maintaining our AIS teachers, our special ed co-teaching. Here's an example. You see those are a reduced number. We had 9 added. 5 of them are rolling into general fund this year, and then we'll maintain 5 of them in the grant in next year. We do have another year of potential tuition for compensatory services for students who had aged out if needed. Class size reduction, 6th assignments. We've actually added an additional 6th assignment at the middle school, which is supporting math in our middle school. Alternative programming at Erie 1, we're maintaining those slots. English as a new language, our teacher at WBS, and our professional development. So again, it was to not only add it 1 year, but make sure it was sustainable and that we were focusing the dollars of the grant in as much as possible the first 2 years, which is when we felt the kids would need our help the most and would need the additional supports the most, and then decreasing our reliance on the grant into the 2nd and 3rd year so that we can roll the expenses that we want to maintain permanently into general fund. And then in 23-24, you can see the list gets shorter. We will have a 3rd year of summer programming, K-12. Our academic intervention service positions are lessened in that year, but it's because they're rolling into general fund. Math size reduction, that teacher in the high school will stay as well as the Windermere E&L teacher. Anyone have any questions so far? This was our biggest focus, learning academic gaps. It's where the majority of our stimulus money is geared towards. It was a requirement of the ARPA grant. They wanted a significant portion, obviously geared towards learning gaps. And we were required to split it roughly in thirds across the 3 years, which we were able to do through this mapping. So on to our next priority, student, staff, and family wellness. We added a counselor in the Family Support Center and a social worker in the Family Support Center. And the Windermere initials are there in parentheses because they're doing a lot of work in that building specifically. But it is a social worker that supports the entire district. We did remodel the fitness center in the high school and the middle school to support mental health and physical wellness. It is almost done. We had a couple pieces of equipment that were delayed because of supply chain issues, but it looks wonderful. We added nurses, 1 in each of our buildings. We tried to hire 4 nurses and we were unable to do that. So we had a mix between a hired nurse and a contract nurse in each of the buildings. And then we had a stipend for our health service coordinator that was overseeing the testing, the COVID testing, the return, test to return, test to stay, test to come, test to go. It was awesome. And then for 22-23, Same format. These are our plans for next year and for the year after. You can see it starts to lessen, again, because we want to reduce our reliance on the federal dollars that we know will end. We will maintain the school counselor and the family support center and the social worker again next year. New next year that we didn't have this year, we'll be adding a behavior specialist, which will be split between Smallwood and Windermere. Now that we are into the year of having everyone back, we're finding that there are some additional behaviors in some of the elementary buildings. Some of these kids haven't been in school regularly for 2 years. So when you think about how do you walk down a hall, how do you sit in your seat, they missed 2 years of that in a normal setting. So we're going to provide a little bit of additional support in the next 2 years with the behavior specialists to support not only the students but the teachers that have the students, to give them additional tools to help deal with some of those behaviors. We added a speech pathologist part-time at Windermere. Again, it came as a need. The caseload at Windermere for speech was so high. Do we assume it's because kids are wearing masks or were wearing masks? Maybe, but the caseloads were high and we felt that it was a need to help get those kids caught up. So nursing. So we will be back to 1 nurse per building next year. That is also supported in our general fund budget, but we didn't want to go from 2 nurses in every building to 1 nurse, cold turkey, straight up done. No one really knows what's going to be the COVID needs, the testing needs. So we will keep 1 nurse on full-time as a floating nurse that'll service all 4 buildings. It'll be an additional set of hands if needed, or can help serve as a substitute in the case one of our 4 nurses are off or have, out of the building for whatever needs. The health service coordinator stipend will remain for each of the 2 years. So those are our plans. Again, the plans for next year and the year after are always fluid. These are our plans, but we have the ability to change our plans based on the needs as they arise. And our priority of health and safety, this was focused on supervision and our physical safety in the buildings. So we had building aids and monitors in each of our buildings this year. They were doing our thermal testing. They were helping with the nurses if kids needed to come and go. We had the isolation rooms and the care rooms. They were helping monitor lunches because we had kids in multiple places for lunches because they had to be 6 feet apart and everyone didn't fit in the same spot. Our cleaners and contract cleaners, again, we tried to hire 10 cleaners to support the buildings to do our disinfecting, cleaning our high-touched areas. We weren't able to hire all of those individuals, but we did combine hiring with Rodriguez cleaners to make sure that the buildings were clean and sanitized every night to minimize the risk of spread and infection in the building. We purchased a lot of student desks. So, flexible seating and group seating is, very popular, especially at the elementary levels, to help kids with social skills and engaging and collaborating. And that was a big no-no during COVID. So we needed to go back to desks. So we've replaced a lot of desks. We did have individual desks for all kids. We also had individual desks in the cafeterias because we didn't want all the kids sitting at large tables. But we did actually purchase desks that are adjustable heights. So when the time comes for our kids to go back to their flexible seating and their group settings, those desks, even at the elementary level, will be usable up at the secondary buildings in high school and middle school, so that we can start transitioning out some of our furniture that's from generations ago, 1960s, and are some lovely colors of yellow and green, but we'll have some new desks up there as well. We added an additional bus at Windermere, and that was to help reduce density. So we had a couple buses at Windermere that seat 72 kids, and they were packed at 72. So we wanted to add a bus to kind of diminish that a little bit, give the kids a little more space on the bus. Storage pods, you see them at every building. That is where we put all of the group furniture that we couldn't use anymore. We purchased air purification and filtration units for every building. There's one right over there. And we changed all of the filters in all of our univents to be MERV 13 air filters, which filter better and catch the particulate that COVID is carried on. We purchased a lot of Ppe and Cleaning Supplies. We had masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, wall sanitizer, foam sanitizer, whatever people needed to feel safe and comfortable to be able to return to the building, have students in the building. We wanted to make sure that we were providing that to everyone. And we added water bottle filling stations in each of the buildings. We had a majority of our water fountains turned off because we didn't want kids touching them and putting their mouths on them. So we were able to replace several of those with water bottle filling stations. So you put your bottle under, and then the kids don't have to touch it, they don't have to put their mouth on it. So moving into next year and the year after, you can see that our focus on purchasing for health and safety diminishes. We will still have building aids and monitors next year for supervision, and that was based on conversations with our principals. They felt that it was important to have those extra sets of hands. We still have some staggered arrival and dismissal times. We still have some kids segregated in different places just for physical distancing, and this was just an opportunity to be able to have an extra set of hands or two in the building for supervision. The MERV 13 filters and the air purifiers, the filters will be replaced at least twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year, and the filters in the Ppe units also need to be replaced. So we budgeted for those in year 2 and year 3. And then we have 1 more year of the additional bus at Windermere, again, just to reduce the density. So the last 2 additional allocations that came were the IDEA ARPA, which is, we're working on that application now, and will support special education needs. So Mr. Belial and Dr. Maria and I will be working on that to see what we want to pull in. Dr. Shanahan, again, it'll be a collaborative effort. And then the Homeless Children and Youth Grant, Mr. Belial is working on that along with some of our other PPS staff to see what the needs of our students are. So we have the students that are deemed homeless identified so that we can reach out to see specifically what they need that we can use that money for to help support them in their unique situations so that they can maintain consistent education. Any questions?
It says application approved. Was the money actually received?
So the money is received similar to our title grants. So when the application's approved, they send us an initial 20% deposit. And then as we spend the money, we submit FS 25s, which are drawdowns. So we spend a little bit and then we send a report in telling them how much we spent, and then they send us another check. So it comes in as we spend it. So this will be posted on our website, and again, any community members or parents that have opinions or thoughts on different areas that maybe we should be looking at as areas of needs, you know, we're happy to take that information in and take it into consideration when we're developing not only these grants, but any amendments or changes to the grants over the next couple of years.
Yeah, just if you could add to the presentation, the behavioral support specialist will be also supporting the middle school, in addition to Smallwood and Windermere, because I know you listed those 2 buildings on there, and that planning has already started for some exciting things to support the behavior of all 3 of those buildings. And specifically, they'll be looking at, you know, more tier 2 and tier 3 behaviors with functional behavioral assessments, writing of behavior intervention plans, and then we've been pretty skilled at that work in the past, but actually carrying out the behavior intervention plan is where the behavioral support specialist will be helpful, because sometimes a plan is well documented, but it becomes difficult to implement in the classroom and practice. So that will be happening in all 3 of those buildings.
Great, I'll make that edit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to new business.
All right, we will need a motion for new business items.
I'll make a motion for new business items H1, A through J, 2, B through E, 3, B through E, G, and H.
We have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving new business items H1, A through J, 2B through E, 3B through E, G, and H, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Ms. Casodi, do we have any follow-up action items?
I was wondering if Mr. Lonzak could send me over some sign-up information for that spousal counseling, work spouse counseling
I sent it to Mrs. Pinella.
program.
Sure.
Well, I was thinking about somebody else.
Oh, sorry. Somebody's had to drive to work with their wife this week. Mrs.
I had someone
Carver,
else in mind.
Tony, all you need to know, happy
work
wife, happy
wife.
life.
I see we do have a bunch of new team members, joining us, so I don't see anybody here, but I want to say congratulations and welcome aboard to them. So, and with that, we do not have executive session, right? We're done? Then we will need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, everybody, for coming.